Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with both Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones, and we're recording after the Hawks played the Houston Rockets, and we have seen a game. Uh, it was feels like there's five different things to tackle at once, so I will give it to you, Glenn, and tell me what your lasting impressions of that game are. Like, what ones you want to tackle at the top?
Well, I mean, one of the things I was looking for is what would they run that might look different than what we saw last year, and the big change we've talked about this is Kristaps Porzingis and his floor spacing at the five, his ability to stretch the floor. And in the first quarter, we saw them actually run a floppy set for Zach, which they didn't really run that much at all last year. And they ran some for Terrence Mann after he was on the team down the stretch last year, a little bit here and there. But the one that caught my eye was the play where the 1-2 pick and roll where Dyson went to the rim for the lob. Like, that's some inverted stuff you'll see when KP is on the floor. And you might have seen this before with Denver, like when Bruce Brown played there, and he's back with Denver again this year, right? They would run that with Jokic a 5-1 pick and roll, or when Jokic was off, they'd run it with Jamal Murray a 21 pick and roll and roll Brown right down the middle of the paint. And you've seen historically, depending on what team he's on, Russ Westbrook kind of when he's playing off the ball, set that screen and kind of roll as well. So that was the thing that kind of jumped out to me. That I thought the first quarter was overall pretty messy. No surprise, this is the first time they're playing someone other than themselves, in a competitive game. And Houston's going to be one of the better teams in the league this year, no doubt about it. Right, absolutely, no doubt about it. They're going to be big, physical, tough on defense. They run a lot of sophisticated stuff on defense. And but by the time they got the second quarter, they looked like they had some rhythm. They played with a lot more pace in the second quarter. Their spacing was better in the second quarter. And to me, like you just look like, okay, look, Kennard's on the floor. That just opened some things up. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is confident taking shots at the 3-point line. And so it definitely got better across the second quarter. But I thought it was kind of a messy but still kind of a fun game to watch. And I think there's a lot to kind of take away from it. And I think the next test really is in their next game. Are things a little cleaner? Are things a little bit more organized? Those sort of stuff. That's what I'll be looking for.
What were your big takeaways, Tyler?
Um, I guess the biggest one is that, preseason one, game one, and teams are putting their center on Dyson Daniels, right? Like from the opening possession. And it looked like the Hawks were completely not prepared for that because they kept like it's fun that they're running, pick and rolls and trying to get Sengun involved. But I'm like, just run your normal offense, please. Like Reed Shepard is guarding Zachary Reese. If you run your normal offense, you're going to get an easy shot. And it took them really into the second quarter when they just started, playing more free flowing basketball where that got going. But I thought in that first quarter they were absolutely their worst enemy, where they were just trying to force the issue. When I'm like, guys, like Reed Shepard cannot guard Zachary Reese anywhere on the floor. Like just give him the ball and work from there. And like he'll cause a double team and he'll pass it out and somebody will get an open look. So that was a negative. I thought just in general though, I didn't like how Trey and Dyson were on the floor together, how they played together. Um, it's tough to describe other than that say I didn't like when Dyson had the ball, just the lack of aggression that he played with. When Trey was off the floor, all of a sudden he's, running point guard, and now he looks like, the guy who won most improved. But when him and Trey together, so that is just something I wanna key in on for the rest of this preseason, how they look together, because I feel like they've played better than that before. Again, it could 100% be like first game center probably was not expecting that on the scouting report, for Houston to absolutely turn them up like that. And maybe they were just caught flat-footed there, but like they need to be ready for teams to do that, especially if Porzingis is going to be the starter. And Porzingis isn't going to be willing to set hard screens. So like, they got to be ready for teams to like, okay, we're going to put a smaller guy on Porzingis and we're going to put our center on Dyson Daniels. Dyson, he's going to have to take open 3 pointers. He's just going to have to play with more aggression, um, get downhill, force help, and then you can play off of that than what they were doing, which I didn't really like. It's fine for them to do that 1-2 pick and roll, but like if it just leads to a Dyson Daniels floater, I'm like, you can get a better shot than that. So that's kind of where I was at with the starters. Uh, but from there, like Congo looks fantastic. I, I mean, the Congo Porzingis minutes with Trey and Luke Kennard, like those lineups are going to eat on offense. Like they're just absolutely going to destroy teams on offense. That's something that D Lee for three David Lee said on over on Twitter, and I co-signed that statement where that pairing looks fantastic already. Okongwu's passing, like he's I think he's taken another step, and quite frankly, he was the best player on the floor for the Hawks. At least in the half court, Jalen Johnson was just like a manic on both ends, really. Like he was really impressive as well. So, there's some good takeaways overall. Like it wasn't. I'm a little too hard on the Dyson Trey thing. I didn't like the flow with those two in the game together.
Yeah, I
No,
mean
I asked
the
Trey
thing that
after the game, just sort of for his thoughts, and he offered that kind of unsolicited, yeah, unprompted. I'm sorry,
yeah.
he offered up unprompted that he thought that Şengün guarding Daniels for the first few minutes really gave them trouble, and he specifically said that they haven't really practiced against any kind of looks like that yet. So, I think he knows that that's coming and that they will practice against those looks, but they have not done anything like that in practice yet. So that's something that they're going to have to get adjusted to, and they haven't really tried to get there yet. They're still just, probably just doing their basic stuff at this point.
yeah, I
Well, I
mean
mean, it starts in like 2 weeks, so every team's going to do that. I'm sorry, like
I'm sure it's coming.
respect the Quinn. What do you think teams are going to do? Just let Porzingis bomb on slow-footed centers? Like, come on
But
now.
Houston has like Houston does hasn't Houston done a fair amount of that?
oh yes. Yeah,
That's
oh
like a
yes.
Houston thing, right? That's not,
Yes.
I
Going
mean,
to be
they
it. Kevin,
partly is
it's going to
okay,
be
they're doing that because of the way the Hawks play, but that's also a thing that Houston does a lot of. Like they did a lot of that
true.
last year.
It's going to be an every team thing.
Sure.
Like
Okay.
especially
Yeah.
to start the season. Like there's no sugarcoating this. Like if I were a coach, that's what I'm doing. I'm putting the center on Dyson. I'll be like, all right, we're going to take the ball out of Trey's hand one way or the other. You know, force
Yeah,
Dyson to
they
be.
I mean, we remember that game last year where like Okongwu's going to set the screen and Dylan Brooks is following him up the floor. They want Şengün going up the floor, right? They want to keep him out of that stuff. And Şengün's, I mean, he to his credit, he works hard. He's gotten better defensively. He's
He's
still,
gotten a lot better.
yeah, he's got a lot better defensively. He knows how to use his size more now. He knows how to use his, a little bit more now. So it's been interesting to watch his growth. But I mean, uh, Udoka did that in Boston too. He would send a wing up the floor with the center. So he was doing that one year he was there. Saw a lot of that as well, and you're seeing that more and more around the league. And so the Hawks do have to kind of be prepared for that. But they've had what, a week to practice, right? A week, I think, is about the right amount. But it's, I mean, I'm glad they saw it in game one because I feel
Yeah.
like they needed to experience that and go, oh, this is what teams are going to do to us, in this configuration. But the other part of that is that the Hawks do have more offensive firepower on the floor now than they did last year. And that is going to be interesting to see. Does that dilute Dyson's role a lot? Do they still want it? I think you still, depending on matchup, you think you want Dyson getting downhill, especially when Trey's off. He's very good at the floater, very good getting to the rim, all that sort of stuff. The big concern we've talked about is making his free throws. That's the big step he's got to take to become a more reliable kind of scorer across all 4 quarters. But it's gonna be interesting to kind of see how that goes. And I mean, when Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker were on the floor, I mean, the ball was flying around.
Yeah.
Those two guys really know how to move the basketball. And that second unit, I thought really almost showed the first unit like what it looks like to play with space and play with pace and kind of push that. And then when some of the starters came back on, they fit kind of into that. And I think that's why the second quarter went a lot better. And Trey in the first quarter, I mean, was off ball quite a bit.
Yeah, he
And
was.
the second quarter he became more assertive and a little bit more central to kind of what they were doing. Um, but Quinn talked about this in his different media availability. There's a lot of change on this roster. They've upgraded the offensive talent on this roster, and getting everyone to kind of figure out what the right usage distribution is. And against this kind of team, we're going to play a little bit more through these players. Against this kind of team, we're going to play a little bit more through these. They need some time to kind of fill their way through that. But I still say the East is wide open, and for me, what's going to set the tone for the Hawks is how quickly in the regular season they can establish some level of consistency. If that takes 15 games, that's too long, right? If you go 8-7 in your first 15 because you're up and down, you're not getting out to the kind of the lead that maybe you should be able to kind of get out to, right? And so that consistency, and if that means Quinn's got to play 9 guys and that's all he's going to play, if that's if that's 9.5 with a little bit of mo, if there's whatever that is, but that hitting a level of consistency early is what's going to set their early trajectory, as if they be playing from behind 3 to 5 games behind other good teams across the first months of the season, or can they kind of get out to kind of the lead pack to start? It's a tough ask with the amount of change they've had on the roster. um, but the change they have, they're veterans, so they should be able to stabilize their play more quickly than say young guys, right? And so that's the key thing I'm looking for. And I want to see cleaner play, more organized play from the first minute of the game on the second preseason game. I think that's something that they need to commit to and take accountability for.
It's interesting too, because like the other, big takeaway of, talking to Quinn and Trey post game is that they were both, I think, quite impressed with Nikhil Alexander Walker's willingness to be aggressive with his shot on offense. And yeah, he putting all this together, it's like you wonder if, as you all these guys are going to play together because they have, 8 guys that they just want to rely on so much. But you wonder if you can kind of skew Porzingis's minutes to Alexander Walker's so that, it gets harder for them to put a small on Porzingis, because then you've got a big guarding Alexander Walker and he's just pulling you so far out because he's maybe the best floor stretcher they have. Like, he might not be the best shooter, but like, with Kennard was kind of, choking some of his shot attempts and, playing through the offense. But I think, I think the Hawks really want somebody with Nikhil's aggressive mindset. And that seems to be something that maybe, you could do,
Some-
I don't know. Am I
It,
crazy? Does this make
no,
any
no,
sense at all?
no, Kevin. It's something I talk about with Ricochet all the time, where it's like if you're open, you just got to shoot the ball. Like with your, especially with your shot release, like it doesn't matter what the play is. It doesn't matter how many seconds in the shot clock there are. It doesn't matter if you're 0 for 4 during that stretch. If you're open and like the defense isn't respecting you, like Nikhil, honestly, Trey and Luke need to look at Nikhil and be like, hey, when you're open, you got to shoot it. None of this pump fake into another. Like, bro, just shoot the ball. Like, you're open. This is the NBA. Shoot it. Because that forces the defender to guard you. Like, it literally creates space whether you make or miss a shot because they have to respect your willingness to take the shot. And so like that's to me something where, especially with the new foul rules, we need to talk about that in a second, Glenn. But like, you got to be
I
aggressive,
didn't really get to ask anybody
especially
about
on
that tonight,
defense.
but I wanted to. But it's like there's so many things in this first game. It's like I couldn't get to
Yeah.
that tonight.
No, but like it would behoove you to take contested 3-pointers because you can almost certainly, if they're calling it like this, you can draw a foul on a tightly contested jump shot now. Like
Yeah.
it's James Harden got another 10 years if they're gonna call it like this, man. I don't understand why they changed it. But shout out to Dylan Brooks, I guess, because that this is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing for me is like when teams do put a 4 on Porzingis, put a 5 on Dyson, you've got a 3 on who Zach or Jalen, or a 2, maybe a 3 on Jalen. Like play through Jalen in the post. Like if he's got a 6'4" dude on him, and that's how they're lining up. And they had one time tonight they recognized the mismatch and they played through that mismatch. I think it was Jalen, right? Got a mismatch on him. He got Reed. I think he got stuck with Reed Shepard on him, and they played through that. But I was like, why did we see that just one time? Again, first game, don't want to like grade too hard, but I do want to see them take a step next game to recognize the way that the other team is matching up and what they can kind of go to take advantage of those cross matches and those kind of those kind of staggered matchups that you see. Because if they're going to play 5 on Dyson, 4 on KP, or 4 on I mean, Jalen should be able to eat down in the paint when they
It
when
was
they.
it was tonight though. It was 100%. They were putting Reed on Ricochet, and it's just
Yeah,
like play through Ricochet. I've seen Ricochet eat smaller guys in the post.
yep, yep.
Did in Eurobasket. He did it a little bit to the end of the year. There
It's
was no,
trickier
like
with
to me,
Houston though, like even like compared to some of those Eurobasket teams, because it's not one guy. It's like, all those guys, they have so much length behind him. Like
that's
he,
fair. But I mean, just start the possession
yeah,
going towards him,
yep,
force the help, then you play out of your
yeah,
offense there. Now it's a lot easier than what they were trying to do, which was we're going to force Sangoon up the floor by basically having Dyson be our center. And I'm like, okay, let's use our better offensive players when respect the Dyson, but like at least off ball, let's use our superior offensive players to get better quality looks than trying to force it with Trey and Dyson there. That's really where my biggest issue pretty much from the game came from is just I didn't care for what they were doing in that first quarter. But again, like Glenn said, once the reserves came in, they kind of figured it out, and it stopped being an issue really after like that first 7 or so minutes or so. So it's not a big in the grand scheme. It shouldn't. I don't expect this to be an issue going forward, just because like the Hawks with Jalen and Zach, they have so much natural size. Like if you're gonna play this cross match game, like that's a dangerous. You're really playing with fire because I mean that's the other thing. Jalen, like that's as physical as I've ever seen Jalen play on
Yeah,
offense. Like
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
that was I've never seen that before. And like what was impressive was it was the left shoulder, the shoulder he had surgery on. Like I mean, uh, to do that to the Amin Thompson, like and Amin's not a small guy, but he made him look like a chump.
they
And
put him on the floor. Put him on the floor.
I'm like that. When Jalen ever done that? Respect. Like
Has
he's never
anybody
done
ever
that.
done that? Like he took a full body like cross
It was
check
a, it
and
was
just
a, it was
played
a
through it.
flagrant foul level check,
Yeah.
and he made it look like nothing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
it was absurd.
yeah, yeah,
so like that.
yeah,
If
and
Jalen's gonna be that, he's gonna be an all-star, like full time. If
yeah.
Jalen's gonna put guys under the basket, with physicality, no doubt in my mind, he's gonna be an all-star this year.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think Brad might be releasing the Jalen episodes on Locked On Hawks tonight, and he and I talked a
Ooh.
lot about playing more physically and not being so finessed and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of conversation on that, and we talked about that really being the thing to get him to being an all-star level is realizing his first step is really fast for a four. His verticality is special for a four. We think he's the second best rebounding power forward in the league besides Giannis. I mean, is there another one like right there? And so just want to see him just be kind of set free, to kind of just apply all of that. And we've talked about how, from a personality standpoint, he wants to share the basketball and those things, but he needs to be assertive. He has the skills that require assertiveness for him to max out what he can produce in that setting, and it might feel a little unnatural to him as he tries to adapt to playing that way. You hope all that time he spent with LeBron is he saw some things and heard some things that really are going to kind of help him move the needle. But that to me, I mean, a little bit of stealing the thunder on that. But I think Jalen is the kind of X factor that will determine how good their offense is this year. If he's aggressive and assertive and recognizes when to attack and how to attack, that's the difference between them being a top three offense and being a top eight offense. To me, and that's just something that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Um, if we might switch gears a little bit, um, you look at what Quinn has for his rotation, and he obviously has these 8 players that he wants to rely on very, very heavily. Was there anything in this game that maybe gave you any inkling at all as to what he wants to do beyond those 8?
I mean, Mo and V didn't play until the second half, right?
Second half.
So,
Yeah, there
right.
were no bigs
Yeah.
except for Jalen, Onyeka, Chris
Yeah.
Stapps in the first half.
Yeah, and I thought Mo showed some good and some bad. He knocked down a three, and he rebounded the ball well, and showed his. We talked about he can fly around on the floor and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, if the Houston starters were in and they were playing Adams and Şengün, it's gonna be hard to play Mo. When they're playing those two guys together, or Clint, or pick whatever two you want. But I still think
Hey,
Mo's gonna
oh,
demand some time.
I I got to disagree with that because like the rebound Mo had on Clint Capella had the ball, and Mo took it from him because he out jumped him. I'm like, wait a minute, it's a little different. I thought that was I was very impressed with Mo's physicality throughout
Yeah.
when he played, combined with his natural athleticism. I would hope that Mo is in the rotation just because he's a little too good. Like you watch him in that second half, he's clearly the best player on the floor. And I'm like, for the Hawks, I wasn't talking about the Rockets there. When it was the pure like bench guys in the game, like Mo was like way way a tier above what those guys were showing, and I'm hoping that Mo. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to play a lot just because of nature of the NBA season, but I do hope game one Mo is in the rotation. Now I will say I didn't hate Ricochet getting some time at the 4.
Same.
It's just the team they played against was probably the single worst. That was like the worst time to trot that out. Like, all right, yeah, here's that. You got to go defend Sengun. I'm like, all right. If we want to build Sengun's MVP case, now I thought actually Ricochet did okay. Kristaps was kind of
Fouling.
if somebody was failing in that, Kristaps was kind of just bad, like full stop. I'm like, this is not considering he's guarding Capella. That means you're not guarding anybody. He should have been a little bit more attentive to what was going on defensively. He was a little late to everything, but it's preseason, and again, first play Porzingis is not setting the screen. I'm like, all right, he's not. You know, he's taking this. He's getting this cardio in. He's not interested in competing tonight. So
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not.
he's not the best screener in the world.
No,
He's not a wide body. He wants to get through the screen and pop to the 3-point line. So they'll probably play faster through and slip him to 3-point, things like that. I mean, Trey got totally spoiled with Clint Capella's level screens for a long, long time.
There was
And
some
even if that was
interesting
all,
stuff there too, where it would like when it
yeah,
was Onyeka Porzingis, they used Onyeka as the screener,
yep,
and they were doing some stuff where like Chris Stapps flashed into the high post as Onyeka was rolling.
yep, yeah, for sure. And so it's just gonna be. I think that it's gonna be interesting to see a little bit more high-low design, which is not something they were able to run last year with Clint in the mix. But like with Jalen, Kristaps, and Onyeka, they can run some high-low there and have whoever's in the dunker spot flash to the front of the rim if you've cleared that much space out. And that's what I'm eager to kind of see as well, because that should be there all the time if they have shooting on the floor, right? That's kind of stuff should be there all the time. Um, and so yeah, it was, like we said, messy first quarter, got a little cleaner. I think the Hawks run a different defensive scheme than what they do in Boston. I think Chris Kristaps has to adjust to the help principles are a little different. We don't have to go deep on that right now, but I think that's getting into some defensive rhythm. You know what impressed me the most about Mo tonight? I don't know if you saw this live. His communication, like when they were in transition defense, he was calling all the matchups out, and just and where he's been kind of a quieter guy, but he was just really vocal tonight. And that to me is like a person who's like, okay, this is what I have to do to get on the floor. I have to be vocal. I have to make the calls. If I'm the first guy back, I got to tell everybody, you got ball, you got this guy, you got get this guy. And so even the athleticism jumps when he's on the floor all the time, just jumps out at you. But the attention to detail, I know that that must be something that the coaching staff appreciates him. It's not just in leaning on his athleticism, but also the processing and the recognition and the comms and that stuff. And I thought he was excellent in that area tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's game one for him, but like on the opposite end of the spectrum, like as much as we appreciate like Asa Newell, like looked good shooting and he had some good plays here and there on defense, like he looked a little bit lost in the transition defense game. Like it's like he's trying to figure out, wait, where am I supposed to be? Like that was a challenge for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and they their whole first quarter they were struggling to get matched up in transition. I mean, part of that's just the Rockets had such a big lineup on the floor, but they kept getting like Luke on Sengun, It's like somebody want to go get him off of that matchup. Um, but I guess we'll say first game. The other thing that just jumped out at me is uh Dante had 10 rebounds in 13 minutes. I mean, he was working on the glass. The first quarter, the Hawks couldn't rebound the basketball on defense. A lot of that was not getting matched up the way that you want to, but he was active down there, so offensively, he's a finisher. We know that's pretty much what he is, and that's why he's not, going to be a rotation guy. But if somebody gets hurt, and you just need somebody to go out there and play some competent defense. He looks like a guy who can give you some defense and some rebounding for the 10 or 12 minutes that you need your third center in a game like that to do. So I thought he deserves a little bit of a shout out there too for just looking like a pro,
Yeah.
out there on the floor tonight.
He looks
to
like
me,
a
the
guy
bigs
like
is
if you get that odd game on a Wednesday against Andre Drummond and you're just getting absolutely butchered in the wrong
Yeah,
way by
yeah,
a really physical big, like he looks like a guy who can come in and handle that kind of thing.
yeah. You get Zubac or Drummond or those guys. He's a good gonna break glass guy, right?
the bigs, all the bigs and the forwards all look good to me. Like e- every one of them that played, I think they all look. I thought actually outside of Porzingis, who the 4 fouls in like 3 minutes or whatever. I just think Porzingis is like this is preseason, and he's a veteran. I'm not too concerned about it overall, but
Yeah,
like,
same. Yeah.
um,
He seemed
I
bothered by like a little injury or something too. Like he was showing the trainer his wrist and some at some point between like the first quarter and the second quarter he was getting that taped up. So I don't know if something happened where he felt like, he wasn't completely comfortable physically, but
yeah,
that's one thing
it
that you
was
could see
Sangoon, it was
live.
Sangoon beating him up. That's what was getting to him.
Yeah.
But
Honestly, like just to say one thing about like I'm super impressed by Houston. Like I'm excited to see what they do this year. They're a
They're gonna be
very
awesome.
interesting team.
They're gonna be awesome. Yeah. But the other thing is that like you don't want to like jump on the refs in a preseason game. You don't want to like get off on the wrong. But man, he was on his posts and his drives. He was hooking like half the time he was hooking his defender, and they would not call it. But he's to his credit, he's learned to do it in a like lower visibility way where it does. I mean, you get that dark arts around that. So you got
Mhm.
to kind of tip your hat a little bit too. But he was hooking his defender quite a bit, but it wasn't like this big where his arms coming all the way up. He just gets a little hand in there, and so that was a little bit funny to see. But I mean, I mean, talking Inabaki, he's a fun guy to watch. I mean, he can really pass the ball. He's physical, kind of back a guy down and all that sort of stuff. And it's a throwback to when Kevin and I were 30 years ago. That's how half the teams in the league played through a center like that. But yeah, he's definitely it's gonna be interesting to see. Number one, a question I have is, are they really not gonna go try to find a real point guard? They're too good to play Reed Shepherd. Like they're just too good, right? Um, and so I'm just fascinated, and they have a lot of assets to trade, that they can trade,
they
but
actually don't.
they're
They
they're
don't have.
too good.
That's
What's
something.
that?
That's something guys talked about. They're um they're capped at like either the first or the second apron just because of what they've done. They don't have much matching salary to get anybody. So like they're kind of stuck. This is the roster. Like they don't. they don't have an out, right? They literally can't trade anybody. The Capella contract is really what's kind of forced their issue here, where they literally like the league won't allow them to exceed the second April because they're capped there. So like they're kind of stuck with Reed Shepard, and that's going to be a problem for them because like I mean Reed's just
He's not ready.
the idea of Reed Shepard is better than what the reality is, and
And he
he's just
and
not
he's
a
gonna
point guard. He's
he's
not a
gonna
point
bull
guard.
yeah, and he's gonna have a bullseye on defense on every possession, right?
Yep.
But the question I have, I love Tari Eason, but if you had a chance to trade him for a point like a veteran point guard, would you do it for this team?
But like, what veteran point guard's making Tari Eason money?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's that. I mean, Glenn, but that's the problem they're running into, right? Where it's like they literally can't do much. Like I think it's something like Brad's kind of hard. I mean, that's how the Hawks got in Folly Dante for
Right.
nothing. They couldn't match that nothing contract because they're capped. They're hard capped. So they're I like unless they can convince Fred Van Vliet to waive his no trade clause, they're kind of stuck with this team. Like they're literally stuck. So that's what it's like because their offense it got a little too easy for the Hawks to take the ball away from them in
Yeah.
that second half. If the Rockets weren't making every three they took, you know, the Hawks were going to be up by 10 points. So
Yeah, I just like,
that's something that
it.
they're going to have to fix
I
or
mean,
figure something out.
stylistically, like Colin Sexton kind of makes sense for them. Maybe, and he's on a terrible team, obviously. But for me, it is tricky that the apron is very much a constraining factor in moves, right? But and to me, like having Tari is another guy. Like when Amen's off the floor, having him be your main guy, defending. It'd be hard to give that guy up for me, unless it's somebody who's going to really kind of come in and stabilize that point guard position. So it's just going to be interesting to see what they do because I think their current plan is going to hold them back from what they really could accomplish if they had a real point. And I don't even care if it's like Tyus Jones or something. So, I mean, not that he's available. He just signed a contract. He's not going to be able to get traded until like December 15th or whatever it is, right? And stuff like that. And maybe they hold out until then, But on that side, it's just going to be interesting just to me to see what they do at that position.
I still don't understand the Capella contract. Like you could, like Clint did some real things in this game. You could see how much, he did for the Rockets as a screener in this game. But just for this team, the way the roster is set up, I still don't understand that signing. Like you got Steven Adams, like what?
I
I
mean,
don't know.
they had Nafali Dante in the building. Like respect to Capella. Dante looked good, man. I mean,
He did,
from what the Rockets are asking Clint Capella to do, Nafali Dante could have done that for them on a two-way contract.
for a
And
quarter
then
of the price.
Yeah, I
yeah,
just don't
I
understand that
think they
contract.
did a sweetheart deal with Capella because they didn't want they love him. They love the guy from back in the Harden days, and I just think they wanted to have another reunion. But like once again, Clint Capella's and his contract is going to limit a team's ceiling to me. I'm like, you had Clint Capella in the building, for what you're asking Clint Capella to do. He's going to be good in his role. I'm not saying he's not
Yeah,
good,
no, I agree.
but it's just like I literally just watched Nafali Dante do the same things the Rockets would have asked Clint Capella to do.
Yeah,
It's Dante,
it's
sure, but like not for the amount of money he's getting paid, not for the fact that we can't get a point guard now. Like
Yeah.
this ain't locked on Rockets or anything, but I would not be.
We could
I'm
do a little bit
not
here.
Clint Capella is the
well,
reason why we can't win a title this year. Like full
yeah.
stop.
And you invested quite the draft pick in Jabari, and now you like where is his developmental opportunity? Or are we not doing development? AKA Nate McMillan. But I mean they invested a big draft, a serious draft pick into Jabari, and I know he missed time last year with the injury and all that sort of stuff. But it's just gonna be interesting to see the way that they try to kind of fix that hole in the roster to me. And they might have to wait till mid-December when some of the free agents that just signed are available, off of other teams. But yeah, anyway.
I mean, speaking of point guards, Hawks might want to look into finding one because I didn't care for what Keaton or Veet did on offense as point guards. I thought there's not like if you're a serious NBA team, like that's not what you want from your like third point guard, like at all. Like when you get outplayed by Nico, and I'm like, okay, this is a problem, you know. So the Hawks have optionality, but I do think before training camp ends, they need to be hunting the market for like a real point guard. You know,
Yeah,
which
and I've been
not to say
yeah,
not to say Keaton and Veet aren't good, and like not to say that this guy is going to play, but if there's if there are multiple injuries, I'm not comfortable with Keaton being the point guard, and I'm not comfortable with Veet being the point guard. They're better when they're playing alongside a Trae Young
yeah.
or even a Dyson Daniels. But if those two guys go down, and Nikhil, something happens to Nikhil as well, like I, I know this is worst case scenario, but they have the option to go find another point guard. They should absolutely use it because, like,
Well,
just from a process standpoint, they're not good enough for what you need a point guard to do in that role.
yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they traded Kobe to create a little bit of flexibility, financial flexibility. And my mind has always been on another, power forward with size, but it might make sense. I mean, I think you just have to kind of see who shakes loose when everybody starts cutting the rosters down. If there's a point guard that makes sense for you, even if it's someone who's not going to play every single game, but just a veteran who's just trustworthy and responsible, it might make sense for them.
All right. Game one, preseason style. I'm going to go fly back to Atlanta now. And I thank you two gentlemen for joining me on short notice, late notice, that kind of thing.
All right.
All
Good night,
right.
Bob.
Do it again soon. I got to go watch some videotape too. I feel like I don't quite know what happened yet. I got to go watch.
Good night,
Good night,
good night,
Bob.
Bob.